Hi, everybody.
Hi,
I'm Laura.
and I'm Rubina.
This is our space where our soulful banter meets the elements of life. With each week, we gather with one element and explore the spark it ignites within us, around us, and between us.
And together we reflect on the elemental influence and the way it shapes our path. So today we are returning to water, and this time it's through the sacred ebb and flow of grief.
Before we begin, we are going to do our Palo Santo ritual. So, lighter and stick.
Lighter, lighter and stick, get your wood, baby.
All right. With this flame, we honor the fire within and around us.
And with this smoke, we cleanse the space of what no longer serves.
May what is heavy be released.
May what is true be revealed.
May the embers of this moment guide us.
Let's begin.
Let's begin.
So as I said, we are returning to the element of water. Water carries our tears, memories, and the currents of grief that shape who we are. Grief is heavy, it's sacred, and it's not something to rush or to fix. It's something we honor and feel and flow with. And this conversation is an invitation to hold space for grief in all of its forms: the grief of loss, the grief of change, and the grief of love that has nowhere left to go. In this episode, Laura will be sharing from her own journey, losing her mom, her sister, her grandmother, and her aunt. And these are stories carried in the deepest of waters. It's an honor to listen. And as we begin, I invite you to soften your breath, open your heart, and allow the waters of grief to move through you too. This episode, I will be holding space for Laura as she shares her experiences and perspectives of grief.
Not a fun topic to talk about, but
Mm-mm.
it's extremely realistic. It's grief, especially grief. The loss of someone is such a heavy grief that so many of us walk around with on the inside, and it never gets fully, resolved or worked through. And over the course of 5 years, I have gone through 9 major losses of loved ones in my life between my side of the family and my husband's side of the family. And, watching his weight and then shifting to the weight that I'm feeling, like you truly don't understand the weight of grief and loss until you truly experience it for yourself. Especially if people that you're really close to. I've lost my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, my sister. And, at this point in my life, I'm the oldest female in my family left. And that's, a weight of its own after, losing so many elders essentially in your life. My sister's not an elder. She's actually my younger sister, but she's taller, was taller. I'm short. And, everybody always thought I was the youngest because of my height, but she's tall. She was taller than me at the age of 3. So I remember being at the babysitters and she's like, "Okay, back to back. Oh, Julia's taller now." And I'm like, "Jesus, I've been working so hard."
Rick, it's so hard.
I don't mind. I like being short, but I don't hit my head on shit. My husband's really tall and I watch him hit his head on just about everything. So
That's really hilarious.
yeah. So, this episode is not to be a sad cast. That is the last thing on our agenda with this podcast. We want to bring insight and share stories from the soul. And today's episode is just a heavy one. And, I just invite you to be open minded with us and to share this space with us. I'm not here to cry and boohoo my problems on you. I'm just here to bring perspective and insight and share my story. It's truly one that you never imagine going through this or the weight of it until it's literally yours to bear. So, you know, just is what it is. It's
Yeah,
life. It's a factor of life, and we all go through it, and at some point we'll go through it. So
yeah.
it's okay.
Um, yeah, it is. I have found that there are a lot of people around me that I deeply care about that have been experiencing very heavy losses and grief, and um I have had to hold space for a lot of loved ones as they go through this, and it's difficult to be somebody witnessing it from the outside, and like you said, you unless you go through it, you don't fully understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
So another reason why, like I said already, I'll be holding space in this episode, and as we introduce chapter 3, that we're going into deeper topics, to just touch on this stuff that's real. This is a very real part of
Yeah.
death, so
Well, I think the biggest thing with our podcast too is wanting to show that we're human and we're here with you, experiencing similar things and going through similar things with you all. And I think that's why we've become vulnerable to share our insights and our wisdom that we've gained along this beautiful journey.
beautiful journey, darling. Yes, indeed.
And Ruby, I just want to say you've been a great support system through the whole time of me going through things. I remember when I lost my mom, I literally just texted you in the middle of the night, my mom died. And you just like called me as soon as you saw the message in the morning, and you just like held space with me on the phone. And through the whole time, like you've always just been like, you can vent to me, you can let out to me. And when you're going through a lot of like negative things, or you have a lot of negative feelings and emotions to work through, you don't want to just word vomit on people. And Ruby has always been supportive and a great catcher of my word vomit and emotional just unokayness. So thank you, Ruby. You've been a great
Yeah,
friend and support system through that
I
journey,
love you.
through this journey. I love you too, girl.
I'm glad I could be there for you. It's I never want to be someone that, I don't know, it's hard for the people that you care about to come to, even though you love them, and then you're like, they feel like they can't come to you. So that makes me feel good that I was able to do that for you, and I still can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It goes to show surrounding yourself with good support. It means a lot. I wouldn't be able to get through and process truthfully a lot of what I've gone through in the last 5 years if it wasn't for you on my support team, a couple of other friends I've had on my support team, my sisters, my dad. Losing my mom was extremely unexpected. Like I had talked to her that morning, and then that evening it was, that was the end of the that was the end of the road. Sorry, I
Yeah.
have like dark humor that slightly comes out when I talk about death, and I'm silly, and honestly, like my family's silly. So it's not me being like insensitive. It's just kind of a part of my process and just laughing about life and being silly about life.
Yeah.
So everybody's always like, "You're so strong. You've gone through so much." And I'm like, ha. I just laugh about it, and I pray to God that it'll be okay. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, it'll
it's
be
true.
cool.
Sometimes I would worry. I'm like, is she okay? Because you're like laughing about stuff, and I realize that it is true. That's the way that you process things, and
Yeah. I mean,
you're a very light person.
we just
You
touched
feel
base
deeply, but
before we hit record on this episode. We were just talking about laughter being medicine. So it just
yeah,
kind of goes hand in hand. And like, I feel like laughter just moves those emotions that you can't get out or, even notice. So it's a good way to like just jiggle everything out.
jiggle it out. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's true. I guess we can get into it.
Okay.
So as we had discussed before that our podcast episodes are going to be a little bit different. We're really going with the structure of kind of Q&A. So throughout this, I'll be asking Laura some questions and giving her the floor to expand on them. So, Laura,
Rubina.
grief has grief has really touched your life in a deeply profound way the last 5 years. So where does your story of grief begin for you?
My personal journey of grief started 2.5 years ago when I lost my mother. Grief, until you experience it at the levels of loss for yourself, you truly don't understand the weight it carries. It shifts everything from your mind, your body, your spirit. It's not only the person you lose, it's the unanswered questions, the unlived experiences, the conversations and moments that you'll never happen or have again. Um, you grieve the thought of what could have been, the stories you wanted to share, the love you no longer um, have a place, or the love that no longer has a place to land, basically. So, everything you're feeling towards that person, it's not being received anymore and essentially given back. So it's just like, you're just sending it out into the abyss, which is its own thought in its sense. But
Yeah.
people tell you there's lessons in grief, but sometimes you wonder, like, is there really, like, what is the lesson that I needed here, losing specifically my mom? Like, it was extremely unexpected, unprepared, and just sudden. I lost, like I said, I spoke to my mom that morning, and then in the evening, like, you know, um, we got the call that she had passed. So, my sister called my husband, and not even me. We were out of town with our 4 kids, and it was just so I could tell he received the call, and my sister Julia is actually the one who called him, and she was like, "I need to speak to you. Like, it's very important." My husband stepped outside in the hallway of the hotel to take the call, and I could hear in his voice, like, going out the door, like something was like wrong. At first I thought it was his mom or his grandpa, because by then, at that point, bad news just often seemed to fall from his side of the family. But when he got off the phone with Julia, he told me, "We need to step outside. We need to go talk, like, right now." And I remember just like walking down the hallway, just pressing him, like, "Yo, tell me what's up." Like, kind of just like grabbing his arm and just like shake it, like, just, yeah, what's going on? Like, I need to know
Yeah.
right now. Like, I could just feel like something big. And I remember he tells me, "Your mom's dead, or your mom died." And I just remember, like, just getting to the elevator door and just kind of losing my shit. And like the tears just kept like rolling out of my face, like, no, no, no. Like, like disbelief really took over me in that moment of hearing that news about my mom's passing. Um, and, we make it outside. We both smoked cigarettes at the time. And it's like, "Do you want a cigarette?" Like, I was just in such shock and disbelief. I couldn't even like have a cigarette yet. I was just like crying uncontrollably. Like, I was mad. I was angry. I was in disbelief. Like, I was shaking. I remember him just like holding me as we're sitting on the sidewalk, getting up, pacing back and forth, and then, eventually just calling my dad. And my dad they didn't want to call me because we were out of town on some business for the family, like, for us, like the family, our little family. We were out of town for business, and they were like, "We didn't know if you were sleeping, driving, whatever." And at this time, it was midnight at night when we got that call, so I was trying to sleep. um, and they were gonna wait a week to tell me until we got home, and I was really glad they
Oh,
didn't, because I would have been
yeah.
flipping pissed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you don't know how to handle grief in that moment, especially extremely unexpectedly. Like my mom, like, nobody knew. Nobody like even had an inclination that it was good, it was coming, or it was happening, or that she was even sick like that. Like, she actually ended up having like a heart attack and like just not pulling through it. And it was, nobody knew. She had some signs, but honestly, like, in women, heart attack symptoms are so different than men. It's, you know, heartburn isn't really a common like thing that you think is associated with heart. And you're like, "Oh, indigestion, whatever." My mom was always eating like Tums and had an upset stomach. So for her to tell me earlier in that day, like, "I'm having some really bad heartburn, this and that, like, I'm feeling really weird today." I was literally in the middle of a meeting with my kids, for a situation that my family and I had gone through at the 5-year mark of when all the major loss had happened. It was catching up at that time of my mom's passing, and just I my emotional side of myself was tied up with my family. and I never got to call her back and be like, yo, you need to go to the hospital if you're feeling that funny. Like, I just remember saying, hey, I'm going to call you back. I'm just in the middle of taking care of some things right now. And she understood. She knew my mom was my biggest support system and everything. So, you know, the guilt was definitely immediate by not returning that phone call. You know, I remember feeling the guilt a lot. I had a lot of guilt with when losing my mom, specifically just because like I felt like she deserved everything. She deserved nothing but happiness and smiles, and she loved her girls. She loved her daughters. And you know, I was the oldest, and I was the adventurous one, and the wise one, and the silly one. Well, we're all silly. We're all definitely silly. But I feel like she and I really connected on a very deep spiritual level. And she was always my biggest cheerleader. So the guilt of all the things that I didn't get to do or say with her really, really started to take over. And I remember that morning waking up, basically having to cut our trip in half, and telling the kids, hey, we got to get in the car, go home. Grandma's passed. You know, it was a silent ass 13-hour car ride home. You know, the drive was only 8 hours, but that's how just, I don't even know how to numb, I guess. Numb in a cliche way, I felt on the inside driving home and just pouring out the tears literally for 12 hours straight riding home. Like there was a couple of times where we had to stop and take walks around the rest stop and just, you know, move the thoughts and the legs. And I just felt like a sad sap of shit.
Well, I
Which,
mean, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. You know, my mom was losing my mom was like the first death that really like broke me open in a way that I could not control. You know, I cried in a way that I had never cried before. My mom and I, like I said, very close. And she was, you know, 5 years ago when the grief of my husband and I's journey started, he lost his father. So, you know, 5 years ago, he lost his dad. So that started his and I's trickle into the loss of the family or family members. So, you know, I was for 2.5 years witnessing his grief and his loss. And, you know, the kids we take care of came from his dad. So they're not our biological. So there was just this whole ass mountain that just opened up to hurdle over without my mom, because my mom was so gentle and nurturing and kind and supportive through the whole journey, those 2.5 years of losing Zach's dad. And without her, coming home to that house was so empty and it felt dark. And I remember getting home probably about midnight the next day, and it just did not feel the same. And I remember going into her room and like getting on the bed with my sisters, or her bed with my sisters, and you could smell her scent. It was like, how do we bag this up and save it? Which we tried. We put a couple of shirts of hers in like a gallon baggie, but after a month, like that scent just like goes away. But I feel like I have a good little storage box of it in my mental somewhere.
You ever catch whiffs of it?
No, it was such a like, I don't know, such a soft, gentle little smell. Like I remember we were just huffing that shirt though. My sisters and I were passing it around like weirdo. I don't know if that's weird. But that's
It's
what we
not
did.
weird at all. No,
You know?
I mean, you do that with people that are still here that you'll see the next day that you love right after that they left the house, and you roll over and you sniff their pillowcase. So, you know.
Yeah, Zach smells my head often. He's like, "Oh, that's Laura," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. That's Laura.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, grief is so weird. Like I was extremely angry. Like okay, so another thing, like I had to I'm the oldest of my sisters, so I had to take charge of like the funeral planning, getting shit wrangled. My sisters were just like so disoriented, and I know that they both had their own types of guilt and coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I just remember like even my dad was so like he looked like a dang old lost puppy dog. And I just remember having to take charge of that shit. Like, okay, we're doing this, the funeral's then, we're doing organizing. Because when you lose somebody, the first question you're asked when the police and the morgue get on scene, they're like, what funeral home do you want her body taken to? And you're like, what? So there's like all these weird questions that instantly come when you lose someone. And, luckily we found a really great, wonderful place that I don't know if all funeral homes are soft and gentle, but this guy Juan that worked with us, he worked with us with my aunt and my mom and my sister, and he's just been so kind and like soft with us through the whole process and so genuine. He definitely eased the process for us in like, that and how that goes. But
Yeah.
yeah. All right, I'm getting a little rambly now.
Oh. um, no, that's good. I hope that I would hope that if you're in that business, you have a deep well of empathy and compassion and can help people with that transition, because if you're
Yeah.
not, you need to get out of that business like right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and if
like,
you ever see this, you're top notch.
it's top notch one.
Top notch one.
So when you think of grief as water, it's flowing, it's present. What has that river of grief like carried you through in the loss of your mom and your sister, your grandma, and your aunt? What is it? What shores of realizations has it brought you to?
Um, that I have to keep going. I'm a very like be better than the person I was yesterday already. But like now I have an extra oomph of like honoring them in my movement and in my intention. And every time I'm outside, I'm like hiking specifically, like that is something my sisters and I love to do together. So, I will think of Julia a lot of times when I'm looking at the big pine trees, or even if we're swimming at the lake, I'll think of Julia. Julia is my younger sister that I lost that I might not get too deep with. I don't know, maybe. But she, a lot of things. Actually, I guess I'll just get into it. With losing my younger sister, Julia, one of my best friends, 100%. Um, um, I grieve a lot of like missed experiences with her. Like, I'm not going to get to show her Arkansas or take her rock hounding or this and that. So, what the water has basically taught me through the loss of Julia specifically is that I have to still do the things that we enjoyed or had like minded interest in. Like, we both loved rocks, we both loved cooking, we loved the outdoors, we loved exploring, we loved being silly. So, silly is the theme tonight.
Silly.
So I honor specifically Julia and things like that. Now, when it comes to my mom, I honor her through, my spiritual connection with God, essentially. My mom was very, very religious growing up. And she was kind of a pain when she would say this, but she's like, when I die, that's the Lord calling me home. And we're all like, yeah, whatever, mom. Well, I know right now that that's probably her happiest calling is to go home to God. And that's her belief, going home to heaven. And that was her most cherished want, I guess, or desire in life. So when I'm in my personal spiritual practices, I honor a lot of my mom with my intention, or just, we used to share a love of gardening and houseplants together. So every time I'm messing around with my houseplants or planting something for the season, like I always think of her. Anytime I touch dirt or dig my hands in the dirt, I just think about and honor her. And think about all the times we spent on the back porch. Like every spring, we would have a repotting party where we would like repot our plants and put them into bigger pots. And I still have some plants over in my area that are from her and that remind me of her. And, with my grandma and my aunt, so the difference between losing my mom and my sister, my aunt and my grandma were both in their 80s and both expected. I actually lost my grandmother before I lost my mom. But that wasn't like a rip you open grief. That was expected. Like she was battling bone cancer, was going through all these elements where she was in pain and just suffering for like the last couple of years of her life. So that was like an expected loss versus an unexpected loss. So you kind of get to grieve in the 2 years of like essentially in the 2 years that she was sick and not doing well. And you get to say those things you didn't get to say or wanted to say, or visit with her as much as you wanted to, and this and that. And Same with my Aunt Mert. She basically was another grandma for me growing up. It was my dad's older sister who lived next door to us growing up, and she suffered a lot the last couple of years as well. And so that was an expected loss. So with both of those two women in my life, they both put a lot of creativity in me, and just they were so crafty in every other way possible. Um, Very talented. And so anytime I'm making something, expressing myself, um, especially creating something, I always think about both of them. Sometimes if I'm doing a specific craft, I'll think of one or the other, and it just depends on what I'm doing. Zach and I actually made pretzels, baked
Mm.
pretzels on Friday, and my Aunt Mert and I, well, really all of us kids and Aunt Mert, she used to bake with us all the time. So I was telling Zach, I was like, I'm really thinking about my aunt right now. Like, I haven't made pretzels with her since I was like 10 or 11. Like, this is just something. There was a whole summer where we were just making soft pretzels, and she would get on these kicks where she just loved to like bake a specific thing until she was over it. And that was kind of how her crafting style was. Just she would knit for 3 months and then go to like crocheting or stitching or painting, whatever. She went into cycles with her craft style. And always brought us kids along through those cycles, and always had like a kids version to do and an adult version to do, which
That's cool.
us kids weren't allowed to touch the adult tools, but that's okay. I understand now, being an adult now and having kids, and I'm like, these are my nice paintbrushes, those are your shitty paintbrushes. Don't
Yeah.
touch mine. Don't You
Don't touch
can't
mine.
even look at
No.
it. So I understand that so much more now as an adult. But yeah, just things that I do in life, I have to keep going. That is the biggest lesson from my grief. Like, when I lost my mom, I became angry, and I had to have somebody said to me, like, you are aggressive and you cannot let this consume you. And I feel like from that loss, I like snapped out of it and had the just realizations over time that you have to keep going, you have to keep living, and you can choose to honor them in the way you live if you want. That's just how I've felt called to keep sharing my love for these people, even though they're not physically here with me anymore. And the cool thing is still having dreams and they get to pop in. That's super cool. Dreams mean so much more when you see somebody that you've lost in them.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah. Have you dreamt of them recently?
Oh, I think I shared this with you. I have never really had a dream about my grandma, but a couple weeks ago I had a dream about my grandma, and it was so I was reading about like spiritual afterlife about a month ago, and like somebody's perspective on spiritual afterlife was like, when you die you have a job after in the afterlife, and you can choose to do that job, sure. Well, I was in my dream, and I bumped into my grandma working on an apple farm. And she literally had the sun hat on, the gloves. She was kind of on a like step stool ladder, like with the red beautiful apple in her hand. And she's like, "Laura, I'm living my best life right now. Like, I am so happy." And I was like, "Wow, this is where you are. This is great." So that is a dream I had about my grandma recently that made me really feel like that's where she's at right now, growing apples on a farm somewhere else and happy as
Yeah.
heck. She was so happy in my dream, and I didn't really like realize that in the dream until like a couple days later. I was just still processing that, because I was really shocked that she was even in my dream, because I can't recall another dream that she's been in of mine. So that gave me some confirmation that she's living her best life somewhere, you know?
Yeah. I remember you telling me that, and then I thought to myself, you're seeing her in this dream perspective, and she's telling you that she's so happy and she's living her best life. It made me think, is she on a farm somewhere here in the earthly realm as a spirit that is literally helping these apples
Yeah, they
to
were,
to grow to their best of the bit of their ability, because they're being
yeah,
tended to spiritually from the other side.
yeah,
And that was a really beautiful thing, because you think like, why would a spirit be hanging out over here, or that give you the feeling of like, wow, this is really beautiful and like magic is happening here. Just for spirits to dwell in those places, I don't think means that they have to have passed away at that spot. It's like, I love that concept of when you pass, you have a job to do.
yeah.
you
I
can
do
have a
too.
job to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe in guardian angels, and, that's a job. essentially, like if they're choosing to go to the other, or not choosing to go to the other side, but they're choosing their job or whatever it be, like a guardian angel, you're assigned to somebody to watch over. Which I actually just remembered this other story that happened to me. I want to in the last 2 to 3 years, but I was at an art show. I had a booth at a art show, and I met this guy. He was selling jewelry, and he was selling these like triangular, like really neat pendants. I ended up purchasing one from him, but in the interaction of my purchase with him, he said, "Hey, do you have somebody on the other side that really needs to tell you something?" And I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And she just wanted you to know that she loves you so much and that you were one of her favorite people to watch growing up. And I'm like instantly thinking like, oh, this has got to be my grandma, because I can't remember if my mom had was passed it. Not, I don't think she was. So yeah, it's my grandma. I'm thinking like it's my grandma, and that she was basically watching over me, and she still loves me so much, and just basically giving me a piece of love and message from my grandma. She told him that I was her favorite, but I don't, if my cousins are watching this, don't get jealous. My grandma was really, really blunt and rough around the edges sometimes. So, there's a little roughness that comes with Grandma Jean, but still a wonderful person. And I honestly, I always had great interactions with her, but probably because I was her favorite. She said it to me in person too.
I
But
love that. I love
yeah,
that. That's
but I was
really sweet.
she said I was one of the only grandkids that called her and checked up on her and came down to Florida and spent time with her just in like our 20s, our 20s where we were all figuring it out and wrangling life. Like I guess I was still sweet and called my grandma. So
Yeah.
I only remember calling her like maybe 2 or 3 times in the course of like 5 years, but I guess it stuck out to her.
Yeah. Um, what do you think that grief has taught you about love? I mean, you've lost women that you love and hold dearly, and what do you think that it's taught you?
um, the love is never wasted. Even when love is gone, the love I shared with them will still shapes me and still flows through me. That love is the reason really grief exists. The depth of my pain is the measurement of how deeply I loved them, and that love doesn't end and it just changes form essentially. Um, Really, that love is layered. It's not only the memories I hold, but the future I grieve, the conversations, the laughter, the moments. Um, that'll never come. Yeah, those are all things I grieve, but I choose to honor them through the things I still do, and that definitely shows me how much I love them and cared about them and cherished them. And all four of the women that I have lost in my life that were close to me have shaped quite a deal of who I am. Even my younger sister, like she was just such a kind and gentle person, very soft, and just she's a little bit of a wild card, but like she just loved hard. And there was just so many times through like raising my own family that she was just like, you need to be a little softer, you need to be a little more nurturing, like and I feel like she actually really helped me learn how to love kids. And that's not because I don't like kids or anything, but just like I'm honestly a really I have been working through being a short-tempered person, and um I think she really helped me work through a lot of that. So I know even just still raising my kids now, a lot of Julia comes through me in that sense, and having those reminders, and it's also taught me that love is bigger than time. Even though I miss them more as the years go by, and that ache reminds me that the bond is still alive. Um, you know, that love definitely softens me. Excuse me as well. And when I come into contact with other people who have lost, I can understand and I get it. I met a woman a couple of years ago, and she lost her mom 7 years. She was hitting the 7 year mark of losing her mom, and she it still really hurts her and upsets her, and I get it. She was raising young kids, and shoot, I'm only 35 and I don't have a mom anymore. Like that shit is shitty. because
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to taking care of my mom the older she got and the older I got. And, I have big dreams for my life and myself. And I want to take everybody with me that I love. Um, so that's actually been a big part of the grief process too for me, is holding this dream and expectation I have for myself and what I want and see for myself and where I'm going. And I don't get to bring everybody with me. Um, so that sucks. But it's life.
It
that's
is.
that's that's where it's hard for me to understand that there's a lesson in death. Like I don't I don't even know that there's my own personal lesson there. I think it's each individual's lesson. And like I don't know, part of me believes that everybody has a specific amount of time here on earth. And when your contract on earth is up and you've fulfilled your sole purpose through God and the divine, like you've graduated. That's literally how my sister Natalie and I both have processed this. With my mom, I can totally understand that. And it was so much easier for us to process the loss of my mom because of how committed she was to Jesus and God, and her soul was so pure in that sense. And my sisters and I, we all said, yeah, she's graduated. Like she's good. And then there's Julia, who is a young woman with a young daughter and had so much left in the world to do and experience. But she had a very similar soul to my mother, like where she was just soft and nurturing and had a pure love for Jesus and God. And I have to tell myself she graduated too, because that shit's a black hole to think about, honestly. And I honestly was really mad at God when Julia passed, because, there's a 7-year-old daughter left behind and some sisters and a dad and a boyfriend. And it's just like, why, God? Some of those, specifically with her death, it's like, what? No lesson, dude. It
Yeah.
says, ain't no
Yeah.
lesson here.
I
I
don't
have
think
to tell
that
myself she graduated.
I I really don't think that there ever is associated a specific personal lesson with somebody's death that you have to learn something from that. I think it's just the universal lesson of loss,
Yeah. The
that
lesson bigger
it's,
than myself.
yeah, where it's just, uh, it is, it's life. Everything that's living has an expiration date in this realm, and immortality is like not attainable um in this physical body, like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know it's hard because I feel like, especially us, we always try to associate, like, what are we supposed to be learning from this, like how are we
Mm-hmm.
supposed to take away from that. So that frame set is difficult when you're trying to process, like, um just just everything, the emotions and the reason and the timing and this. And I think it's really beautiful that I've associated that too with graduating life, because when people say passed away, it's like they passed, they have passed, they're they're moving on. um yeah, so I just think that's really beautiful reflection.
Yeah, and I believe energy is infinite, the soul is infinite, and I don't know what's after life, but I do believe like you keep going after your physical body here essentially is no longer alive. And that in my mind is a form of graduation, and you're on to different things. And I I I have a hard time too feeling my family's presence around me, but I don't know if that's just because I have a hard time like allowing myself to believe that or what. But like everybody's like, oh, I feel my mom's presence around, or my this and that. But I mean, some weird shit happens, like a fucking a tomato rolls off the counter, or and nobody's over there, or I hear clacking in the other room, or lights turn on and off, like random things like that happen.
Yeah.
um but I'm like, is that my family? Because they know I don't like to get scared. So I know they ain't coming at me like this right now.
True. Don't spook me, please.
Don't spook me, or I'm
Do
coming for you. No,
not.
just kidding. Yeah. Grief is weird. There's so many stages to it, and it's so unpredictable, and literally everybody experiences it in their own way. And
Yeah.
personally, I'm the type of person that likes to hurry up and get through things, and grief slows you down. I've literally only hit a year mark of losing Julia, and there is so much that I have not processed. I feel like I'm still in the first stage of grief with her, and in disbelief and shock still. And I don't even know how to get to the next stage because I don't even know how to get over that. With my mom, it was simpler because, again, like I said, her graduating to heaven, essentially her biggest desire, like that gives you peace and comfort. And once you get through the anger and the challenge of the grief, like you're like, okay, good, she's probably where she wants to be at right now, and that gives you peace. And like with Julia, like there is so much that I have not even begun to process that I should probably start working on that. I
Well,
will,
like,
but everything takes time. And I feel like, too, for
yeah.
me specifically, in the last 5 years of losing 9 people, 4 of my own, actually 5 of my own, because I have a cousin that was also lost. And then actually, there's even more grief. There's even more loss in there, too, because I have other friends, whatever. Regardless, I feel like when you're backed up against the wall with so much loss, your body just goes into a form of shock, and your processing really slows down, and your comprehension of the situation really slows down, and your fight or flight almost too gets so depleted that even when we lost Julia, like I did not cry instantly. I honestly had to get drunk in order to feel myself and allow for release of tears and any type of motion or movement, because I was just so I can only say that's because of the trauma and the pain of the previous losses, and having it so stacked on top of each other. It's just,
Yeah.
2 months before losing Julia, we all just lost a close friend to, battling cancer, and that shit was real. Like, it's like, okay, what's up, life? So
What
weird.
is up, life? Yeah. It's terrifying. It really is.
Yeah. It can be terrifying, but I'm not going to fear death, and I'm just going to embrace it. I think that is um the biggest lesson that I can take away from all of this, to not fear life. That might even be the lesson of loss itself. Like we were saying, the universal lesson, like it is just a part of life, and you're never going to be happy with what time it is. And you just got to live your life to the fullest, and you can't stop. You got to keep going and do your thing. And losing Julia was the biggest propel I've taken this year to make better choices for myself, and get better and be healthier and live life fuller. So that's definitely a way that I continue to honor her too through my life. It's making good choices.
Yeah.
Well, this episode has definitely been heavy, but I'm so happy I didn't cry and boohoo it out. I feel like I was very realistic with myself and the expectation of this episode. I know we're hitting about 45 minutes. Is there any last questions that you want answered, or anything cross your mind that you want to share before we go into our closing?
Um, no, I think no. I I I guess one thing that I could say is like how I just said that it is terrifying. It's terrifying because um I've watched so many people lose a parent close to me recently, and how you've described it to be stacked on top of each other. I feel that kind of like pressure. And, my parents are getting to an age where certain ailments will start to reveal themselves based on lifestyles they've lived. And it worries me, being somebody that like focuses so much on trying to make those good choices and taking care of yourself. So I have said before that I don't fear death for myself, but the loss is really what scares me. So that's just a reality. And um, I just wanted to speak that because it can feel like death is like haunting you when you're
Mm-hmm.
surrounded and like supporting other people that are going through grief. and it's like, is it coming for me next? And to push through that, I mean, the only way that I've combated it is just reaching out more to people that I love. And even
Mm-hmm.
if we're in a weird spot, um, just telling them that you love them, and always, saying what's on your mind when the moment's happening, and not shoving it, because I don't want to regret not saying something.
Yeah.
Um, and
It definitely happens whether you think or not. Like you might feel
yeah,
like you've said everything, but sometimes I I would be mindful with that too, where you feel like you need to say what you need to say, because I feel like with Julia, I always said what I needed to say, and sometimes I wish I was more soft with her.
yeah, yeah, and that goes that way too. Yeah, knowing who your people are, and like knowing who your friends are, who your family are, and just attuning to them so that you can be as connected to them as possible, not just from
Mm-hmm.
your own like personality and like your own, well, this is how I am and this is how I got to tell it to you, like you're connecting with them, you're tuning into them. And so that you get more of that presence, where even if it is a sudden loss, it's like you feel like you were fully there with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I can say I was blessed in that way with my mom and my sister, because I actually was living with my mom at the time of her passing, and I was living with my sister at the time of her passing. So we had a lot of the last couple of years of both of their lives, a lot of shared kitchen cooking time and just yard time and just grocery store, just the little things that you miss the most now, like running up the street to grab something to drink and like whatever. I got blessed in the sense of being able to live with both of them. Those are probably the two biggest losses of my life that will hurt me for the rest of my life until I mean, they're never going to go away.
no.
But um I think time will help. And the only thing I can say is seize it when you can.
Seize it when you can, with who you can.
Hmm.
Yeah, and be brave expressing yourself.
Definitely be brave.
Yeah.
No reason not to be.
No, no. Well, we have a
Well,
closing meditation,
yep.
and we can flow right into that to just kind of, settle back into the body and give you listeners a moment to register what might have stirred from this conversation, and let you feel it. So when you're ready, you can go ahead and close your eyes and find a comfortable position. You can let your body soften and your shoulders drop. Go ahead and unclench your jaw and take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, and exhale gently through your mouth. Feel the weight of your body just resting safely here. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of a calm body of water, a lake, a river, or the sea. The air is cool. The water is reflecting the sky. This place is safe. It welcomes all of you exactly as you are. And as you breathe, notice the rhythm of the water, gentle rise and fall, like a breath, like the heart, like the tides of life. Bring your mind to your grief, not as something heavy to push away, but as a wave. See it moving across the water's surface. It swells, softens, dissolves. We don't need to stop it, just allow it. Every inhale, whisper silently to yourself, I receive. And with every exhale, I release. Receive what your heart needs in the moment. And release what no longer needs to be carried. If tears come, let them be part of the water. If silence comes, just let it be a soft current. And if only breath comes, let it be enough. Stay here for a few moments, breathing with the water, breathing with your grief. Knowing that like water, grief moves, does not stay fixed. It changes shape, it shifts, and it flows. When you're ready, imagine placing a single light, a lantern, candle, soft glow upon the water. Watch it float away, carrying your love, your memories, your prayer. Take one more deep, gentle breath. Bring your awareness back to your body. And when you open your eyes, carry the softness of the water with you.
Beautiful. I was ready to swim in that water. All right, everybody. Thanks for sharing this episode with us. Next week, we are going to talk about the element of air again and the topic of identity. So I'll be holding space for Rubina as she shares her insight and we walk through her story with her. So, all right, everybody. Thank you.
Very exciting. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.